welcome back. It is Wednesday. That means we talk to the uber talented Allison Williams at Allison W_sports, bravest woman in television. All right, let's get right into it because I got a lot of stuff, weird stuff to talk to you about. Let's get weird today. Geez. But this is not weird. What do we got? What did you think? Who did you think was the best team in Wild Card Weekend?
Oh, man, it was a good weekend of football. I was thoroughly entertained and completely surprised and impressed and excited for the Bills. What they did offensively with a touchdown on all 7 possessions was just such a clinic. I was kind of enthralled. Like what are we watching right now? How is this even possible? So that was awesome. And then the other thing that I was super into this weekend, obviously, like the Cowboys game was a disaster and that dominated all the national headlines and for all the wrong reasons and all that stuff. But I'm in the positive story. So I was super excited for Matthew Stafford and the Rams as a longtime Lions fan and knowing what he went through at Detroit. And look, we got some of his best years. Okay. I mean, did they always translate on the field and all that? No. He had his up and downs with the Motor City, but he was a great quarterback for the Lions. And I was really excited to see him get his first playoff win, albeit with LA. And I find the Rams a really likable team. Does that make sense? Like with Cooper Kupp,
yes.
They're just a really easy team to cheer for. So as much as I kind of hated seeing them relocated, really hated seeing the Chargers leave because I'm in San Diego. So I wasn't a huge fan of how that all played out. But now like the Rams have kind of won me over and I find them very, very likable and easy to root for.
I agree with that. I'm not sure why. I like the way they're built, too. They went and got a legit quarterback. Used to be you had to grow your own. Now you just go get a bunch of free agents.
Well, and I think it's their head coach, too, right? Like his system.
I agree.
Yeah, what he does offensively with McVay. I find them really fun to watch and an enjoyable team to root for. So I'm kind of in on the Rams.
You know what shocked me? You know what shocked me about the Rams? I started rooting for Odell Beckham. I thought I'd never root for Odell Beckham.
That says it all right there.
I know. I was all in on Odell Beckham, throwing passes, catching the ball. And I love their stadium. When they showed a stadium, it's like the coolest looking stadium in the world.
Yeah.
I think it's very cool.
Yeah, I'm in on them.
Yeah. All right, let me go to some weird stuff. You ready? Before we get into some predictions.
Okay.
Should the NBA media, should people be upset about the Warriors part owners' comments on genocide in China? Should that matter to people?
All right, so here's my thing on stuff like this, and I promise I'm not playing semantics with you. I don't think they should be worried about what he said. I think they should be worried about how he feels. Does that make sense? Because so many times we want to attack people for what they say, and then we force them into this artificial and contrived apology, and we make them backtrack, and we make them eat their words. That doesn't change their heart. That's how he thinks. That's how he feels. So instead of attacking him for saying it, why don't we educate him? Why don't we show him some pictures and examples of what's going on in China and the genocide that's taking place there, the sex trafficking that's taking place there? I mean, there's modern day slavery in our world right now. And maybe his comments come from a place of ignorance. Why don't we work to change and enlighten him instead of just attacking him for saying something? And I know that seems like kind of one and the same, but it's really not. And I think we have to do a better job instead of censoring, because that's what everybody does. So I don't care what you think. You are entitled to think and have your own opinion. And I fully support that, whether I agree with it or not. But what I want to do is I want to educate you while maybe your opinion is misinformed. And while maybe you should be a little more educated before you say such things. And I think that's what we need to be better about as a society, because a lot of times I saw this quote about like hate can't exist where there's knowledge. So if you really know someone, it's hard to hate someone because you can find something in some capacity you can relate to them on. So instead of attacking him for what he said, which I think is disturbing because of the issues at hand, I think we need to talk about what is going on so we can better educate not just him, but the entire country into the major issues that is taking place across the world.
What's the role of ESPN reported, they always say it's more than basketball. I hear that all the time from particularly the NBA media. What's the role here? Because, Clay Travis and the rest have really pointed out, they've been on top of this. Other than an AP story that made it to a website, there has been literally zero comment on this from anybody. And again, I don't care if you comment or not. It's up to you. But when you do and you build your brand as more than basketball, we're defenders of human rights here in the United States and abroad, and now you don't comment on it. What should they do? What, in your opinion, what should happen?
So I agree with you. I think we have gotten to the point where everyone wants to be an activist, whether you're a journalist or
it pays
until it doesn't. So they want to be an activist until it doesn't pay. And when it starts to conflict with their bottom line or their sponsors, then all of a sudden they shut up. And that's where I get really frustrated, because if people want to know what's controlling this narrative, it's money. And nobody wants to follow the money, because then you get into some really ugly places. And nobody wants to acknowledge the influence of the money. ESPN and these other mainstream media outlets have gotten to the point where they want, and you know this from our time there, they want everybody to have an opinion. As an analyst, how many times did they tell you to say what you think until you say what you think and they don't like it, or it pisses off a sponsor? Right. So we've gotten to this point where we all are supposed to have an opinion, and we're all supposed to be these morally righteous people, and we're all supposed to be more than athletes and apparently more than journalists. And you have to have these opinions and weigh in on social issues at every press conference, and you have to ask the questions as a journalist and so forth. But as soon as it comes into conflict with the company's bottom line or company's company-wide initiatives, however you want to paint it, and you don't agree or it isn't convenient, then all of a sudden we backtrack. And I'm really over this era of convenience. That's kind of been my thing here lately. I've had some people piss me off, and I'm like, you know what? I'm over friendships of convenience. I'm over political stances of convenience. I'm over Instagram posts and Twitter posts of convenience. Like, when are you going to take an inconvenient stand? Something that maybe doesn't win you a ton of fans, but it's the right freaking thing to do. And we don't see enough of that. And I'm looking at everybody here. There are too many people who are cowardly in their stances, and they just do what's easier. I see it every freaking day in California. We're back under a mask mandate, and everybody's putting on their mask when they go in the store, like it freaking matters, like a cloth mask does anything, right? But it's more convenient just to put it on and not be hassled or like not feel weird or uncomfortable. So we're all just going to do whatever's easier. And that's why we're in the place we are right now, because nobody wants to do anything hard anymore. And it's kind of been, you wanted to get weird. So that's been like my thing lately, is I'm just kind of over people taking the convenient right instead of maybe taking a stand. And here we are a few days after MLK Day, and he talks about like the moral obligation to stand up to an unjust law. And we're all just playing along with all this unjustness that's going on across the world. And it's pathetic, because we act like we're just and moral and right and want equality. But do we really? I don't know.
I agree. Look, you're preaching to the choir. Your audience is me, because I'll tell you right now, I'm so tired of a convenient media. Like, I say this all the time. You know, what you see on television or what you read in your newspapers is somebody going, which way's the political wind blowing? Yeah. And I'm going to go that way. And now you're seeing, actually in politics, you're seeing a Democratic side that's realizing, wait a second, the wind isn't blowing our way anymore, so we're bringing it back to the center. But you see all these guys, I mean, they get up there, and in our old company, ESPN, these guys get up there and lie about facts on things that happen to no repercussions. None. Zero, zip, unless it's people like you or people like me. That's the only type people that get any kind of repercussions from any kind of bullshit.
Yeah. No, you're 100% right. And it's so frustrating, because I think and I don't know how we got to this point, but it's all about likes. It's all about being in the popular crowd and in this like mob mentality where everybody just wants to fit in and think like each other. And it's coming at real human cost now. I mean, look at like how the tennis community is not supporting Novak Djokovic. Like, are you kidding me? You think it's right and just that he's not allowed to play in the Australian Open, a healthy, able-bodied, law-abiding, except for Australia's laws now. But like, that's an unjust law. Like, there's no scientific justification now anymore for monitoring someone on vaccine status. Everything we say says otherwise. But nobody within the tennis community wants to stand up and say, like, no, if he can't play, I'm not playing. How?
Oh, I agree. It's not a popular statement.
No, it's not. And it's inconvenient. And so they don't take it.
Have you noticed at all? Have you noticed? at all what's going on in the Ivy League in swimming with the transgender boys, now girls beating the living hell out of everybody? Nobody said a word about this. Nobody's defending the women in this.
No.
Where's Me Too? I'm not saying Me Too is that. I'm just saying, where are women's groups saying, wait a second here? They're so afraid.
Yeah. Backstory, I was a women's studies double major at the University of Miami and studied a ton on gender and obviously the bias that can take place within gender, a lot of race studies, a whole diversity of stuff, right? And so 100% from day one, I'm a feminist, and I still would say I am. Where has the feminist movement been on this? I mean, imagine the people that fought so hard for Title IX and for women to have the access to scholarships and competition. And then now to have a person who competed as a man simply say that he identifies as a woman, grow his hair out, and now go and shatter every woman's record. I mean, is that fairness? Like, I'm not saying I have the answers to this issue, but can we have the discussion? Can we get into the nitty gritty and look, it's an ugly place. Like, I feel for that kid. She's obviously got some issues, right? But is it fair to the people that they're competing against? No, it's not. So how do we make this fair? Because that's what sports has always been about, is finding a way to make an even playing ground. And the feminists and the people that have championed women's rights and women's sports, who have worked so hard for equality throughout college athletics for women, are now silent. And I think it's interesting, and it says a lot, because again, it doesn't fall in the way of a popular opinion. But if we want to do right by these women that are busting their butts and training, and then somebody has a clear advantage from a physiological standpoint, is that right to let them compete because of the way they identify? I want what's right for everybody. I want what's equal for everybody, but that doesn't seem like a fair playing field to me. And I have a, this sounds weird, but it bothers me more in the individual sports. So like, you have people who are transgender in the WNBA, and I'm like, look, if that's what they've agreed to, I understand that. But there's something about the individual sports versus the team sports, when you allow that I think it's really complicated. And it comes down to all the differences between men and women and the advantages that they present. And we have to stop acting like those differences don't exist. But yeah, in the individual sports, I just think that's a really, really unfair place for female athletes to try and compete.
Your point about educating in terms of the Golden State guy, it exists here too. It exists in this issue. Mm-hmm. Nobody, when you even bring up a question, the first thing you will do, if somebody played this, let's just say Fox News took this conversation and put it on their show. So, it followed a vast audience. The first thing that would be discussed wouldn't be the issue. The first thing that would be discussed, Allison, is that you and I are transphobic.
Right.
And what horrible people we are. And that's just bullshit. Mm-hmm. I mean, look, let's be honest. There are physiological differences. The people that are involved, that are competing against this person, are mad about it. They're hot about it. I mean, and whether you agree or disagree, whether it should happen or not, that's fine. But you should have a conversation about it and at least get into what's real and what's not real. But that's not, everybody is so afraid of the gay community that our people that write on swimming are so afraid. I asked Pat Forty on my radio show about it. His daughter's an Olympic swimmer. And he reports on everything. Oh, I don't want to touch that. Everybody's so afraid. The whole world revolves around the show 30 Rock, okay?
Break it down for me.
I'm going to break this down. I watch it it's the funniest written show ever. And Tracy Jordan says, oh my God, I offended the gay community. They're the most organized of all the communities. I'm telling you. And now that's from like 2005. But he's right. And everybody's afraid to offend this community, or not even offend them, and discuss things with this community. They're so afraid.
No, you're right. Nobody wants to be labeled. Like, I feel like this is one of our, it's almost like the modern day racism, but racism, I understand, is so prevalent, right? So I feel like people are so afraid to be labeled anything that is anti something. So if you're transphobic or homophobic or you're racist, and it's like, okay, well, now you've put me in a box and like, now you're not going to listen to anything I say. So it's like, you're right. People are so afraid to just discuss issues within the gay LGBTQ community. It's a little bizarre to me though. Like, at what point do we let it dictate, every policy, education, right, all this stuff? So this is crazy. I didn't realize this. My husband told me this. In California now, well, two things. This is super bizarre to me. We obviously have a lot of issues out here politically. You've seen what's going on in LA and the mess that is. I mean, I was up there for like Pac-12 media days over the summer. It's disgusting. There's homeless people everywhere. There's shit in the streets. It's a mess. The obviously the crime that's going on is insane. All that stuff. So what our governor recently passed though was a bill requiring major toy stores to have a gender neutral toy aisle.
That's what he cared about.
Yeah, because, there's gates at the end of each toy aisle that says you're a boy to come look at the trucks. You have to be a boy to look at the trucks. You have to be a girl to go look at the dolls. You see those. Like, what? Like, I'm sorry, if I go to Target with my son, which I do quite a bit, he goes in whatever aisle he wants. If he wants to go look at the pink Barbies, he can go look at the pink Barbies. If he wants to go look at the blue trucks, he can look at the blue trucks. There's nobody stopping him. Like the fact that we are so concerned with gender neutral toys for kids that just want to play with toys. And you know what? Sometimes he wants to play with the doll. He loves Sky from freaking Paw Patrol. She's got a sweet pink helicopter. It's awesome. Good for him. Like, what are we doing? This is a priority. The other thing they do, and this is so insane, Dan, in the jail system now, if you identify as a female, you can go to the women's prison.
That's unbelievable.
That's unbelievable. And it's very problematic for reasons you can imagine. So
right.
I mean, we have to realize, like, if you want to identify a certain way, like, okay, cool. I'm going to support you. I'm going to do the best I can to use the right pronoun. I might slip up. I'm going to respect your decision, but that doesn't make you that sex. Like, you still have those parts that we learned about at a very young age that make you a certain sex and allow you to do certain things. And that's why we need some separation in certain places, like jails, or like what happened in Virginia with the bathroom, right? So this is tough, difficult stuff. I want to come up from a place of respect. I fully support a person's decision to live their life however they want to live it. But there are certain things that are biologically built into us that impact things like sex and sports and so forth that we can't live in denial of.
Honest to God, that's what we do. We just put a mask on and say, okay,
yeah,
just to
play
appease.
Along. I don't want to offend anybody. Like, offending people is like the worst thing you can do now. Yeah. I mean,
who, when you were born and when you went through life, did it say we're not going to get offended? We got 330 million people or whatever the hell it is. We're not going to offend anybody. That drives me batshit crazy. I got offended. Oh,
sorry.
Okay.
Like, I have been offended too. We've all been offended. Like, grow some thicker skin. Learn to take a joke. I don't know. I mean, are you? I don't know. Yeah, it's.
Hey, I gotta look like this every day. That's offensive.
My eyes gotta see you. That's offensive.
Let me tell you something. This being on Zoom is offensive. Not bad for radio, but god dang. Come on. That's the thing that drives me nuts. Two words, offensive and inappropriate. Well, that's so inappropriate. Okay. Whatever.
Yeah.
I mean,
that was Chappelle's whole thing, right? When he pissed off the whole LGBTQ community.
Yeah.
Right? He's like, who gave you the right to go through life unoffended? Like, especially as you're a comedian, that's your job. Like, imagine how not funny this world would be if you could never tell any offensive or inappropriate joke. I'd prefer to laugh at myself and maybe a few other, I don't know, maybe I'm an asshole, but.
I do. Hey, look, all right. Let me go another question with you based on this, because this is the most fun I've had in a long time, because we're actually talking about something. If somebody makes a misstep, I say this, all right? Unless you truly don't believe, or excuse me, if you really believe in something and you say something and the mob gets mad at you, never apologize. Like, it doesn't help. I don't think it helps.
No.
You tell me, how do you handle a misstep?
Well, I am not a PR crisis manager. I probably could have used one these last few months, but I live by an authenticity principle. So if I don't believe it, I'm not going to say it. And I think that goes back to my initial statement of don't worry about changing words, change hearts. So if you feel like you've said something wrong, let's engage in that conversation with the person that is saying you said something wrong. So what did I do incorrectly? This is why I think what I think. Why do you think I'm wrong? Let's have a conversation. Let's have a discussion. It reminds me of like the whole, when Drew Brees was speaking out and he wasn't completely in support of the players kneeling for the national anthem. And he talked about why and what the military has meant to him, what the flag means to him. And he got killed. He got killed and he had to apologize and he had to backtrack and he had to walk it back because, you know, you can't criticize Colin Kaepernick or that movement. It's not allowed. It's like basically get put in social jail. Michelle Tafoya has dealt with it recently after her appearance on The View. Like, you are not allowed by this mob.
Do you think that's why Michelle Tafoya is off NBC?
I don't know. I'm super intrigued by that. I like hold my thumbs back I want to text Tarico so bad. Like, give me the dirt. Like, what's going on with Michelle? Because I love her and she is an icon and she's somebody I've always looked up to and have so much respect for. Yeah. And she's just pure class and such a professional. And I'm so sad that this season will be her last. And I don't know, but I think it's interesting timing. And I know how criticism of Colin and that stand in that movement, justified or not, is perceived. And I'm sure there's been a lot of backlash. So I could see too, like NBC just wanting to make a change, you know, with the change in the booth, they're going to switch things up on the sideline too. So I don't have any inside information to that. We should text our buddy.
But your point is well taken, though. I mean, you know, you go on something like The View where everybody's supposed to have an opinion. That opinion, I guess, offends a minority, but a very vocal minority. And it next thing you know, you're not doing the same job.
Right.
And I don't think she announced her retirement.
Nope.
You know what I mean? It's. You know, give us your opinion, as you said earlier, as long as it's our opinion. Right,
as long as it's perpetuating what we've been saying and it's just a regurgitated form of the points we've already made, then like, yay, come on the show. And I'm over that. And it's funny we're getting into all this because it's kind of what I'm getting into with the Daily Wire is like, and maybe I'm like not supposed to say this stuff. But that's what we want to dig into is like, what are we doing? Especially in sports where like, that's the one place where everything has been kind of, it's always been a unifying place. And now we've allowed this division to infiltrate sports. And I think we're headed to a really scary place when you're only allowed to think one way and say one thing. Otherwise you're pushed into this like far off margin, right? And I'll say through my experience, well, a lot of people either stay quiet or agree publicly. Privately, they're more aligned with us than they want to admit, but they won't speak out, you know, because of the backlash and the inconvenience. And it's a crazy world we live in right now. When we want to talk all the time about inclusivity and diversity and equality, but it's only of a certain mindset.
It is absolutely of a certain mindset, and if you don't acquiesce, is there anybody? Before I let you go, I've kept you way too long. Is there anybody you'd like to see uncanceled? I'm going to say this: I want to see Donald Trump back on Twitter because I thought it was entertaining as hell. That's one. Is there anybody you're like, hey, uncancel that guy?
Well, I think Robert Kennedy Jr. should be uncanceled. I mean, everything he said is like turned out to be true. I would say him, but I think for fun's sake, I think Chappelle, like the fact that they tried to cancel him is just insane. Like he's way too talented and fun. And I guess he didn't like a fit. They tried to cancel him. But I would say Chappelle, maybe. I don't know if I could deal with, you know, I guess maybe I could deal with Trump on Twitter since he's like not president and it would just be pure comedy.
It's comedy. It's comedy. It's like, you sit there and you go, wait a second, is he the president?
When he was president and he would say, it was like, oh my God, seriously, now this is all that's going to be in the news. Like the tweets were just out of control. But yeah, now we could actually really enjoy them.
I know, and that you know, I had a friend of mine when I said I was going to do this. He said, Dan, he said, if you could get, he goes, I don't know what all happened. He said, but I really liked House of Cards with Kevin Spacey in it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that was such a good show, and then they got rid of him. He was, yeah.
Yeah, they're like, hey, you know, can we work that out? Because it wasn't the same without Kevin Spacey. I'm like, yeah, okay.
I didn't even watch.
I'll work on that.
Yeah, you got major pull. Come on.
I was up. I remember Katie Hartung.
Yes, Kaylee. You say Katie? Kaylee's my girl.
Kaylee, jeez, I love Kaylee. So we're sitting there doing. I don't know what we were doing a slam dunk contest, and we're having beers after. And she's like, Dan, you got to watch this show. And I started watching it. And I had to be, I think I was co-hosting Mike and Mike at like 7 a.m, and I'm watching it till like 4 a.m.
It does that.
I'm like, oh shit!
It's so good.
Oh, it was so good. So that's when a friend of mine said, "Hey Dan, I know he did horrible things, but can we get him back on TV just because the show was so freaking good?"
That's a good one. I forgot about him.
Yeah, I didn't even think about it until I got the text this morning from my boy. He told me, "Please don't say my name because I don't need people coming at me."
You're supporting a molester. Oh yeah,
right,
I mean he is creep, but his show was good.
The show was good with him. All right, I was going to get into stuff, but we got to run. I appreciate your time. This is more fun. Thanks for the conversation. It was terrific.
Yep.
You're the best.
See you, D. See ya.